Good morning and welcome to our millions of viewers here in Nigeria, the continent and all around the world. This is the Morning Brief and we're reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. I am Kelly Egiga.
Indeed, and we're bright, upbeat and early. Welcome to your perfect morning starter on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. And you know, it's been a dramatic 24 hours with deliberate steps taken in many parts of the country. Some, you know, well directed towards nation building and hopefully towards economic transformation ultimately, which is the collective will and aspiration of most Nigerians. Speaking of which, the National Assembly, the House of Representatives really led the national public hearing yesterday that would lead to, you know, what we hopefully believe would be the 6th alteration to the 1999 Constitution. So would this be, you know, the deliberate steps required to ensure that the new Constitution that we would have, or the amended Constitution that we would have, the 6th alteration, would be, you know, a product of Nigerians, of the desires of Nigerians, of the aspirations of Nigerians? Would it then be truly we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Would it produce good governance? Would it translate into inclusivity? Speaking of which, of course, the women, you know, chose a very good time to lead a march through the streets of Abuja yesterday, advocating for the, exclusive bill for women that will see, a woman representative from each state of the federation, the 36 states, and the Federal Capital Territory, you know, have exclusive seats for women in a very practical way at achieving the much needed, balance, equity for women leadership, giving the circumstances, you know, where it's very difficult for women, to get those very precious seats for, leadership at the National Assembly. But, you know, it appears as if the women have more work to do in terms of, you know, going to the other states of the Federation to ensure at least 24 state assemblies, are on the same page as far as this is concerned. And that is critical, because when you get to the north, that's where you find, you know, that there are cultural inhibitions, there are religious inhibitions in the way of the women. But it's a good step in the right direction. They've been gathering the signatures that they spoke about yesterday prior to this time. But we thank also those he for she's that participated in that walk yesterday. Well, among other, issues up for amendment in the 1999 Constitution, but we're going to be, looking at that much later on, perhaps in the week on the program. But Kelly, what resonated with you the most from yesterday?
Well, I think we're in the final stages of this constitutional review process. The National Assembly has a deadline for December 2025. To complete this particular process, and so it'll be interesting to see how the coming months would be in terms of this review process. Is the key areas you've mentioned, a few of them: inclusivity. There's the area of devolution of powers. I'm looking at it here: the state policing, local government autonomy, and all of that. But we're doing this as we begin to count down to Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary. 65 years of being independent as a nation. And this morning I was just trying to reflect and ask myself, just how independent have we been for the past 65 years? I looked at across all sectors, from the health sector to tech to finance, and I saw that while we would say we are independent, there's a lot of dependency on the developed nations or world. 65 years down the line, when we reflect, we see that in terms of our healthcare facilities, we have the elites and politicians who would always travel outside of this country for medical procedures. 65 years down the line, elections are coming in 2027. We will see the opposition parties crying out to the international community to come to their aid and ensure that there's perhaps visa bans for corrupt leaders here in the country. 65 years down the line, when you look at other nations that were ranked where Nigeria was when we gained our independence, or who had even come to Nigeria to visit and learn a few things from us, Malaysia, Singapore, Finland, and you wonder where these nations are and where we are 65 years down the line, when you look at the fact that we tag ourselves, we pride ourselves as the giants of Africa, the most populous black nation in this world, but then 130 million plus or more reports suggest are living in multi-dimensional poverty. There is so much concerns right here. Yes, I mean, some will say, you know what, America did not get to where it got to in a day. You know, it took them many, many years. So let's be patient and let's see how this can play out for us, you know. But I think a 65-year-old man or woman has already passed her prime. I mean, if you look at it literally. So it's a big reflection for us. And so as we get to count down to October 1, and then the constitutional review process as well, I think Nigerians do have to be very involved with this process, because so that when the amendment eventually you know, is implemented, you will not say, how come I did not know about it? Because there have been public hearings ongoing, you know, across even the 36 states and all of that. So I think that it's a big concern. You have to be involved. You have to know what's happening when these public hearings come on board. You have to visit those areas, visit those hearings, and see how you can be a part of it and make your concerns known. But hey, we're going to unpack this, I understand, in the course of the show this morning. Let's walk you through what our outlook looks like for today, September 23. 2025. So much to unpack for you on the show this morning. But first, we get to take a look at national security as we get to take a look at what is playing out in Nigeria's northern region. There's so much to talk about there. There have been videos of bandits making peace deals and even threatening governments, you know, at the state and federal levels. We'll get to unpack all of these dimensions of security threats and concerns, and perhaps resurgence in the Northeast.
And that's not all. Away from national security, we'll also be looking at the economy. Nigeria's economy records GDP growth rate by 4.2%, the second consecutive economic growth rate recorded. That's as released by the National Bureau of Statistics. But what does this mean for you and for me exactly? Do the statistics translate into, you know, increased purchasing power for Nigerians, amongst other issues that bother on economic development? Of course, we're scrutinizing that data on the program as well.
Plus, on the morning brief this morning, we get to take a look at the controversies, the accusations and counter-accusations between Dangote refinery and Nupeng and Dapman. Sometimes when the big boys get to fight, they say when the elephants fight, the grass suffers. But in this case, when these people fight, we get to hear some revelations that Nigerians and information that we're not privy to. We'll get to unpack some of these revelations for you on the show this morning. So that's what the outlook looks like for today, September 23, 2025. But guess what? Last night, the Ballon d'Or right there in Paris, France. You see the big names there, the big talents in the world of football. Aitana Bonmati winning the Ballon d'Or for the female category. Ousmane Dembele claiming, of course, the male category. Lamine Yamal also as well in the news yesterday. The biggest talents in world football gathered right there in Paris, France for the big one. Dembele was in tears yesterday, and you could understand why. I'm particularly happy for him, and that's because he had gone through a very dark moment in his career. He had battled injuries upon injuries from time to time, and so for him to get to this highest level of his career, where he's perhaps crowned as the best footballer in the world, in the male category, I think is really commendable for him. Congratulations are absolutely in order for all of the winners. I was particularly excited when they had the the goalkeeper nominee, I think it's called the Yasmin something awards or trophy, and I saw Nigeria's Chiamaka Nnadozie there as making it to the finals of, I think, the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. So congratulations are absolutely in order for Chiamaka Nnadozie, Nigeria, and the continent. She didn't get to win, but to make it to the top 5 goalkeepers in the world, that is big, that is huge. That is massive, Bukola.
Yes, indeed. You know, the strides of the Super Falcons, you know, ensured that they would get a place. I was, you know, expecting that, you know, there would be more, you know, visibility for them at the Ballon d'Or in terms of getting maybe a coveted prize. But we'll take top 5 goalkeepers. And congratulations, you know, to Dembele. Good things do not come easy.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're going through the throes, you never know what lies ahead. And that's why it's good, you know, to just hanging there and continue, you know, to do your very best. And you know, it was a happy prize there for Dembele.
It's okay.
I was just going to ask, Nnadozie missed out on that. What were your expectations in terms of you know, Nigeria's Super Falcons or any member of that team getting a prize?
Because I'm going to be very biased now when I speak about Super Falcons or Super Eagles of Nigeria or the talents that we have in this country. I'm going to be very biased because I think that sometimes we do not understand that these things require some sort of politics, international politics. There is politics in football. Hey, listen to me, there's politics in football. And so sometimes it's a bit difficult for the continent to see our talents make it to the final stage or get to win some of those awards. JJ Okocha, perhaps the greatest talent in football, perhaps,
in Africa.
Arguably. Well, not just Africa. I mean, Ronaldinho himself, the Brazilian, had to confess to the fact that he had to learn some steps and moves from the legendary JJ Okocha. And yet, he doesn't have any personal glory to show at that level of Ballon d'Or. He never got to win one of it. So sometimes I believe that there's politics in football, there's politics in sports. I think that Nigeria, we're not ready yet to play some of this politics. Because if you ask me, I'm not sure I saw any Nigerian delegation at the Ballon d'Or last night. I was watching out. I couldn't even see even Chiamaka Nnadozie, who made it to the top 5 right there in Paris last night. We have to understand the workings of how these things play out and then try to strategically position ourselves for our talent and get to see how this would work, because I think it's a great feat. The Super Falcons Mission X accomplished, winning the African trophy 10 times. But some will say, you know what, when it gets to the international competitions, the World Cup, where will they be? How will they perform? I'm sure they'll watch out for that in the coming years. Well,
a compelling submission there that you put out that causes us to think perhaps we should discuss this one of these days, you know, where we would have officials of the Federation Association, you know, to come share their perspective with us why we're not showing up at the international level as far as the politicking is concerned. But there are other issues that we must unpack for you on the show this morning. National security is the very first leg of our conversation. But before then, we'll take a break. And when we return, we'll turn through the front pages to see the biggest stories for review. Of course, our guests will be joining us. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Many thanks indeed for staying with us. The dailies gets our attention next as we are joined by Adeni Ifetayo, who is the public affairs analyst. He joins us virtually. Thank you indeed for agreeing to do this with us this morning, Mr. Ifetayo. Let's begin perhaps with the Nigerian News Direct. It says, Dangote refinery, you can only delay change, not stop it. You can only delay change, not stop it. Otedola tells marketers. Hails Tinubu's deregulation policy for dismantling oil industry cabals. Mr. Ifetayo, this has been in the news now for, I think, for almost 1 month. The back and forth between Dangote refinery and the truck drivers, the marketers, Nupen, Dapman. We'll get to talk about that on the show today. But some would just say, you know what, Mr. Femi Otedola is friends with Africa's richest man. Perhaps maybe that's where he is coming from. But I wonder what your thoughts are indeed. Mr. Effeta, perhaps you may have to unmute your mic so we can hear you loud and clear. I was asking, the main rider there for the Nigerian News Direct this morning, Dangote refinery. You can only delay change, not stop it, Otedola tells marketers. But some would say, you know what, Otedola and Dangote are friends. Could this be a question of, standing by my friend? Okay. Well, I'm told that we cannot get your audio, Mr. Adeni Ifetayo. Hopefully we can reconnect with you, hopefully, and get to unpack what your analysis and commentaries are this morning as we take a look at the Nigerian News Direct. But let's take a look at some other riders right there on that same paper while we try to see how we can reconnect with him. We have other riders there. Fubara declares peace after meeting with Tinubu. Remember, the governor was right there at the presidential villa yesterday. Some would say perhaps on a thank you visit, the kind of things that we see Nigerian politicians do. So he was right there at the presidential villa, thanking perhaps Mr. President for restoring the democratic rule in Rivers State after his suspension for 6 months. And hey, after thanking God on Monday, he's back at the presidential villa to say thank you to Mr. President. Bukola, I'm trying hard not to express some of my reservations and concerns for the kind of things that we see our Nigerian politicians do. But hey, it is what it is. One of the issues that was uppermost in my mind after the lifting of the state of emergency was how the last 6 months had affected the people of Rivers psychologically, and it was one of the questions that I asked, and some of the answers that came through, even without a direct a question put through to the people of Rivers, was that they're thanking Mr. President for lifting the state of emergency, and we saw that also coming even from the governor. So that's quite telling about how politics is played. Oh, how thankful we are as a people. The state of emergency it elicited massive condemnation nationwide from both legal luminaries and politicians, and for the people to emerge grateful for the lifting of a state of emergency, something that set the state back by 6 months, something that was challenging court, even though we didn't get a definitive direction of the court educating the people on the implications of that section of the Constitution. So it says a lot about our politics. The governor has eaten the humble pie, so much of it that it has to be grateful for. What has come to him, the leftover of what has come to him in terms of, the political share of the resources of River State. And a lot of what has gone through behind the scenes, we may not know. And, that's why some of the elders in Rivers are saying that they demand an explanation about what exactly happened between, the political godfather and political godson that brought Rivers to its knees politically. These are critical questions, to ask, such that in the future, the people will not be cowered in fear and be grateful, for high-handed politicking such as we have seen in Rivers State, by extension, the state of emergency. Yeah. Well, we'll see how the coming days get to play out, because really, people say peace has returned, but some would argue that has peace really returned. Some would say that what exactly is the content of this latest agreement? You know how the FCT minister can be very particular about agreement is agreement. And so some would say that, you know what, so what's the latest, what's the content of this latest agreement which has been reached? If the first was breached before, it did not happen again, well, the coming months will tell, Bukola.
Indeed. Let's go to the next paper now. We hope that our analyst is back. We hope that he can hear us now. But let's go right ahead to New Telegraph newspaper. And the headline coming through from New Telegraph is corrupt high-profile Nigerians risk visa ban, U.S. warns. And there's just one rider there that's, it gives an insight into the report. Says corruption fight knows no borders or limits on accountability. And there's a huge talking point as far as the fight against corruption is concerned in the country, with some progress on some parts, and you wonder where progress is as far as corruption is concerned when you consider high-profile politicians who are on trial for corruption. For instance, the trial of the former governor of Kogi State. The EFCC boss had in fact put his job on the line if that trial does not go through successfully. But some would say very little is coming out of that, and in fact, there are other trials of the last decade of, politically exposed persons that have not recorded much progress. The headline tells its own story. Kelly.
Well, I think I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the fact that just how independent are we. Do we really need the U.S. to come help us fight corruption here? Do we need them to always threaten us like this before we know the right things to do? I don't think so. I don't think so. And then, of course, if we had built Nigeria to what it should be, or what it should be, do we need any threats as to, oh, we have to do this so that, because they know that we will always run to those countries. They know, we are aware how we always want to run out for one thing or the other, for education. The elites, their children are their children always get to school there. In fact, some people even joked how even those who even own institutions, tertiary institutions, still send their children abroad for education, and then you wonder why. So I think it's a big slap. it's a big slap on us. But let's get to take a look at other dailies here for you this morning. This Nigeria's next 72 hours after resumption. Fubara meets Tinubu, says peace has returned to Rivers. 72 hours after resumption, Fubara meets Tinubu, says peace has returned to Rivers. I think we've hammered on that already yesterday and even today. But the other riders there, I think we could take a look at the rider perhaps just beneath the main rider there. It says Natasha, women's groups take battle against Senate to United Nations. Natasha, women's groups take battle against Senate to United Nations. I understand that Mr. Ifetayo has joined us again now with his audio. Mr. Ifetayo, I mean, you haven't missed out so much because we've done about 3 papers already. But let's begin with this, perhaps Thanksgiving meeting with Mr. President and the governor. Getting to meet with Mr. President, Governor Fubara visiting the presidential villa, perhaps for a thank you visit for the 6-month suspension. You see the video on your screen there, Mr. Ifetayo, and our viewers. Is this a reflection of the kind of politics that we play in this part of the world?
No, I mean Abuja, of course, but yes, saying he came for the thank you visit. You will remember that just a day before the suspension, so the state of emergency was declared. The House, the Rivers State House of Assembly, they have already make a motion, to impeach the governor, which might also result into chaos and all of that. And of course, I was listening to Bukola, saying that I'm sure he was grateful for, they said, half bread is better than none. that was able to be back and they resolve everything politically. This is how far you can go. But I think in democracy, the man should have been left to do his job, what he has promised his people. But this is how it is in Nigeria. Sometimes it is Godfather that dictates how far you can go. It is Godfather that dictates what and what you can do, what appointment that you can put in place. But let's just, I'm sure since he's back now, he needs to recover the lost time and the last 6 months which are taking reverse it backward. Forget about the state of emergency, because now he just need to show, galvanize whatever that is left, unite the people from all fronts, whether pro-Wike or anti-Wike, whatever it is, just make sure the state enjoy the dividends of democracy.
Let me squeeze in this follow-up question just before we get to your analysis and commentaries on the earlier newspapers we had looked at. Do you think that he's perhaps ready to join the All Progressives Congress, as it is whispered in some corners?
No, I don't see that coming. I don't see that coming. Just like if you look at it, even when he was called back, if it were to be somebody who is desperate, to hold on to the power, I'm sure immediately it still took him even almost 24 to 48 hours before he resumed, and he just felt that let the will of God be done anyway. But I don't see him joining APC based on what we have heard from the filler. Just finish your time, but I stand to be corrected. Finish your tenure and go. Just have your one shot. And since Wike said he has forgiven him, let's see that he has forgiven indeed, and he has forgotten about what has happened in the past. Maybe they will allow him to run for the second time.
The lead has been put on that now, hopefully, and there will be peace in Rivers State. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper now, and the Guardian newspaper, trails on an issue that affects everyone. 24 states backpedal on electricity decentralization over tariff debt risks, and typical with the Guardian, they give a breakdown, an illustration of what exactly is happening. These are the issues: key risks, tariff shortfalls, subsidy reemergence, capacity gaps in state regulators, transmission bottlenecks, legal overlaps, legacy debt, energy theft, and non-repayment. The question that clearly emanates from the state of electricity regulation as decentralization begins gradually is that, are states ready, despite the legislation that now empowers them, to regulate that sector?
Yes, of course, they've been clamoring for it from the days of estimated bill and all of that. And since there's a legislation in place that empower the state to generate and maybe now to distribute, the federal government has to be in place, or they have to oversee it. I think it's something that they can embrace. They know what they need. They know the capacity of the energy they require in each state. And of course, it will make people to pay for exactly what they use. But backpedal or standing back and, standing aloof without doing anything, I'm not sure some of those states or their leaders in those states they want the best for their sector. And if you are clamoring for investor, one of the things investors will look at is stable electricity, because you need electricity to power home, to power offices, and one or two infrastructure and all of that. So if you don't have electricity, I think it should be, it's not talking about their back, for them to retract or go back. We are talking of even renewable energy, solar energy, wind energy, and all of that. Those are the things they should explore and give the best for their people. If it is one of these things they can do before they leave the office, I'm sure people will not forget, will remember them for good. But going back, because there's a legislation in place, they are clamoring for it. I think it's the thing that they need to do. They can think out of their box. How can they do it? Public and private partnership. Yes.
But Mr. Feta, if they are grappling with the old template, how possibly can they, have the political will to invest in other forms of energy that you've listed, energy, wind, solar?
Like in some part of Nigeria, we are blessed with, I won't say a hot sun. They can make use of that. Some part of Nigeria, we are blessed with, what's it called, the winds, a arable land that can be used to deploy solar, to deploy wind. Some of us, we've had opportunity to travel abroad and to connect from one country to the other. You will see a field that is made up of wind energy and all of that. So those are the things that can be used. They should invest in it. It's just that some of them, if it's not profiting them now, it's not something they can get immediate result. They don't want to venture into it. And governance is a continuum. You do it to the extent that you can do it, that people will remember you for. It's not just for us to just do the normal one. Electricity is very key for any leaders or any governor that meant well for his or her state.
Let's quickly take, your positioning on the earlier story from one of our papers, and it has to do with, the back and forth between Dangote and the marketers. Otedola is telling them, look, you must embrace change, and that caused quite some stir, on X, social blogging networking site yesterday. Mr. Ifetayo, everybody wants to buy petrol, and everybody has embraced the stability that is obtainable now, particularly with the operations of our own homegrown refinery, Dangote Petrochemical Refinery. What do you make of this, back and forth between Dapman and Dangote?
Yes, change is difficult for some people to adapt, and they said the only thing that is constant is change. I think the marketer, they can embrace it, because what will it profit them? Buying forex to import refined crude product, and selling with a margin. And here is somebody who has come, to solve that downstream, even upstream and downstream problem once and for all. So I think it's something that they should embrace. If they're having challenges, they can sit at the table. But going against it, because it's a good thing for us. You remember just a few days ago, for the first time, Nigeria, Dangote in quotes now, was able, to export some refined crude oil into US, which is, in terms of forex, it will do a lot for our economy, etc., etc. So I think the marketers, if there are gray area, they are still finding it difficult. They can still sit around at the table and say, look, give us also time, let's maybe we have some storage, let's even convert it, we can exchange it. So many things that can be done, because Dangote coming on board has resolved one of the major headaches that we have in our economy today. So Otedola saying it's not because he's his friend, he's just stating the obvious. The only thing the marketers are complaining, when change take place, it's just like you are building a house. The foundation, the excavating and all of that is rigorous, and it does not look pleasant. But they should look beyond now and embrace the change that have come, because it saved us a lot of forex.
Well, it's perhaps a fine place to anchor our conversation with you and review with you this morning, Mr. Adeni Ifetayo, Public Affairs Analyst, live for us from the nation's capital, Abuja. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, so this is the morning brief. Officially, we get to unpack our first conversation this morning as we take a look at national security. There's so much concern in terms of Nigeria's security architecture this morning. We're live in Abuja in just a moment as we get analyses and perspectives. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. So let's discuss national security as with regards to economic development, but we're focusing on a particular region, Nigeria's north. Back in the days, or even now, you would hear, some senior colleagues, and Nigerians generally talk about the north and say they would travel to the north without fear, without any worry whatsoever. You hear about the groundnut pyramids of the north. You hear about, agricultural, development in the north back in the days. So some Nigerians are saying, no, we want our good old north back. And, we're proposing an investment summit as a solution, enduring solution to the current challenges that, we find in Nigeria's north. Let's find out, how viable this investment summit is as against the current challenges in the north. And joining us on the program to discuss this, we have Professor Abubakar Jidere, is a spokesperson, Northern Elders Forum. We also have Mr. Salisu Mohammed, Deputy Director General, Northern Elders Forum. Both gentlemen join us from our Abuja studio. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Professor Jidere, I'm going to start with you. From news that came through yesterday, you addressed that press conference yesterday, and the pillars and the agenda that you put forward are quite interesting to note. But some would ask, why now? And indeed, it was one of the questions put forward at that press conference yesterday. And it's a critical question against the backdrop of the very, very worrying insecurity problems that are in the north. So why now, and what are the quick gains of this Northern Investment Summit that is being proposed as a solution?
Thank you so much. As you rightly said, the question of why now, and even why NEF, then why is it is the Northern Elders Forum that is organizing this Economic and Industrialization Summit. We all know that the North historically has been a prosperous region in Nigeria. Right from the colonial era, the North contributed immensely to the economic development of northern Nigeria. The North has been a leading region, even at the level of politics and leadership. Now, unfortunately, so many challenges started arising, particularly, as you mentioned, the problem of insecurity, problem of low investments, and then the collapse of many industries in the north, especially textile industries and other manufacturing sector industries. Now, it has created serious challenges in the north, ranging to insecurity, youth unemployment, and general socio-economic crisis in the north. Now, the North cannot continue like this. We cannot afford to be a giant and the giant sleeping or a giant dying. So the Northern Elders Forum finds it necessary to organize this Economic and Industrialization Summit to create awareness to our leaders, especially our state governors, the 19 state governors, investors, local and foreign investors, and other development partners around the world, so that we can open a new chapter for the development of northern Nigeria. Because northern Nigeria is blessed, extensively blessed, with whatever that is needed, whatever that is necessary for it to develop within a span of time. For example, if you take the area of agriculture, worldwide it is on record. The northern Nigeria has vast land, not only vast land, but vast and arable land. We have human resources. At the moment, we have an estimated about 160 million people in northern Nigeria, and most of them are able youth who are ready to contribute to the economic development. And that in Nigeria, we have 36 states. Out of the 36 states, 19 are from northern Nigeria, and then we have able and competent governors that can come together come together and then put their heads together to stimulate economic growth, so that the North will reclaim its glory and prosper, so that our future generation and yet unborn can benefit from this. And the Northern Elders Forum feels that as a very big organization, a responsible organization of elders of the northern region, it is our responsibility to bring together our leaders, especially governors, and then collaborate with the federal government and development partners, both local and international, so that we can bring back the glory of northern Nigeria. And then in the other end, also we have identified over 44 globally recognized resources that are yet untapped in the north. And nobody has thought that these resources are so much in the north, but today everybody knows in record that these resources like lithium, oil, gas, and gold, and many other mineral resources that can be mined.
Let me take you to
socio-economic development.
Yeah, let me take you to Mr. Mohammed now. I'd like you to speak a bit further on this. Some would say that an investment summit is really the initiative, something within the purview of the subnationals. And we find that in the South, a lot of the states have this template that is done yearly. Now, it's the Northern Elders Forum that is taking up this initiative now. Is it an acknowledgement by the Northern Elders that there is very little happening in that space as far as the effort of the subnationals, the governors in the North, is concerned?
Well, thank you very much. The Northern Elders, is actually very conscious, of the responsibility, of elders, in the society, and has galvanized the initiatives, coming from the elders to channel this as part of our own contribution for the leadership, in the northern part of the country, particularly at the level of the governors, to really see this as our own patriotic contribution to how they can be assisted to really have a kind of, productive, environment that will see northern Nigeria solve, its own problems, by itself, and mark a turning point in which cooperation and collaboration with federal authorities and their own colleagues, from the southern part of the country and the entire country, to begin to have a new momentum that will see the country working in a healthy competition to turn around our fortune. And you see that these collaborations, have actually started, with what happened between Kebbi and Lagos, in the area of rice production, in which, a product, that became known as the lake rice, was actually initiated. This also promoted other kind of partnership between Gombe State, and River State, in other perspective. The federal government has also assisted, a number of states that has set up, a kind of industrial park, in Gombe. It is coming on very, very strongly. Very many other states, Jigawa, for instance, is initiating, other kind of activities, relating to empowerment in the education sector. In Taraba State, we have seen what the governor has done, going to really invite, investors locally and internationally to kickstart, a new elan, in the economic sector. So we felt that the time has come in which really we need to really concentrate on economic, regeneration that will turn the fortune, of the North, to reactivate, our industries, many of which are actually in a very serious state, of decline, and this is not helping matters with regards, to the social climate that we are seeing everywhere. Our youth, in large numbers that are leaving tertiary institutions, are not being able to be absorbed by these factories and industries that have actually gone down. My dear colleague have already highlighted about textile sector. It used to be the biggest employer of labor, working 24/7, in the country with 3 shifts, morning, afternoon, and night. Today, when you go to some of these areas in Kakuri, in Kaduna, they have become very desolate, and this is what we are now trying to do in cooperation with the governors. We are inviting, investors, of very, very high reputation that have made, serious, mark in that area to come in and have a handshake.
Yes, I think that point you've made very clear. Just like my colleague alluded, my father grew up in the north. And when I was very young, he always speak of how the north was, how he traveled. In fact, he schooled in Kara Namoda. And so I dreamed of schooling in the north at some point in my life, but that did not get to work. But I've visited some states in the north and all of that. So, but because of the timing of this, this meeting, this gathering, some would say perhaps there is a motive, a political undertone. So speak to that. Some would even ask, who is bankrolling this forum to start with? And then my second question would be, how do you intend to work with various state governments and political divisions, the APC, the PDP, in Kano you have the NNPC, because we are really divided on the grounds of our political affiliations?
Well, the Northern Elders Forum is a non-governmental, non-profit, non-partisan, organization. Our activities are fully funded by voluntary donations and contributions and subscriptions from our members. We run our activities purely, from these sources, and we are doing so in a very open and accountable manner. And this summit is being run purely by the support that we get through these sources. Our books are open, and over the years we have demonstrated, our integrity.
All right.
And it is our own commitment to continue doing so. We also invite, you journalists to scrutinize our own, sources.
All right. So, Mr. Mohammed, we will do that. We will do that. So I need to squeeze in as many questions as possible as we are beginning to wind down our conversation. But let's take the conversation to Prof. Now, Prof, when you look at the current state of things in the north, confirm for us where exactly you are resident in this part of the world, in this part of the country, and if there is a resurgence of insecurity or insurgency and banditry activities where you are.
Actually, this is one of the major challenges facing the North, but record has shown that the government has done a lot, and the government is on it. For example, in the Northeast and North Central, the issue of insecurity has been tackled significantly, though we cannot say completely, but it has been tackled significantly. And even in the Northwest, of recent, the state governors, particularly Niger State Governor and Katsina State Governor, in fact, almost all the governors in the north and in the region are doing their best. Kaduna State Governor has taken a very good step towards taking both kinetic and non-kinetic strategies in solving these insecurity issues. And it's part of the concerns of the Northern Elders Forum that we looked at it. Probably if we can take steps and then support our governors in their effort to execute their policies, programs, missions, and visions as stated in their campaign promises and in their political party manifestos, then I think if we are able to do this and work together with the governors, socio-economic development will come, and then certainly if we achieve socio-economic development, the chances are that most of these insurgencies and youth restiveness will actually disappear. It will be a thing of the past. As I stated yesterday in the press conference, the government is on this, and we have started seeing, particularly in Katsina, this negotiations are going on with the bandits, and they have started even releasing some captives with the promise also to put down their arms and then accept reconciliation and negotiation with the government. Actually, in conflicts, you cannot take just one strategy and say you only take kinetic approach towards resolving the conflict, because there will be more crisis. So government is deploying all the strategies necessary, and other stakeholders like traditional rulers, NGOs, the academia, and including even the media. They are doing well in addressing this issue of insecurity.
All right.
It is a major challenge, and but I promise you that this thing is moving successfully towards a total end. And we're expecting very soon it will be an issue of the past.
You know, Prof, the negotiation with bandits that you mentioned, the propriety of that is being questioned about how it may not necessarily end the insurgency and issues of banditry in the north, but that's another conversation. One of the enablers for pushing your agenda that was mentioned yesterday is education. And the question is, where education is concerned, if you look at the demography of the north, vis-a-vis the issues of out-of-school children, banditry and insurgency, do you have the ideal enlightened youthful population that you require to drive the quick gains of this Northern Investment Summit that you're proposing as a silver bullet to the issues of underdevelopment in the north?
Yeah, let me start by demystifying the assumption that the large proportion of northern Nigeria are not educated. That is completely erroneous. It's completely wrong. What do you mean by an educated person? Is someone who can read, write, and understand. He's illiterate. And when it comes to enlightenment, someone who knows his environment and knows how to create opportunities in this environment and make use of it. Most of the people you see in the north are highly enlightened. The only challenge is that they are facing economic crisis. But when it comes to education, even those people you see, and most people simply see them as almajiri, try them. Give them, they can read, write, even if not in English, they can read, write in Arabic excellently. They can read and understand what they have written. That is it. And we have a lot of people who are graduates in the north, professionals. In fact, of recent, a northerner, a very young lady from Yobe State, won the global competition in English. And she won the global competition not in Nigeria, not in the north, outside Africa, in the areas where we say is English-dominated part of the world. So you see, the north is actually well educated. The only problem is we are facing economic problems, and that is why the Northern Elders Forum have seen that, look, our governors are doing their best. Every politician has his own mission and vision, and every political party has its own manifesto, but they need to be supported. They need to be encouraged. They need to have partners we need to also help them get a development partners so that they can revive the glory of the North and then establish economic prosperity for the benefit of future generations.
Indeed, bringing back the glory days of the North would be a collective joy for Nigerians. We must anchor the conversation at this point, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We've been talking with Professor Abubakar Jidere, spokesperson, Northern Elders Forum. We've also had with him Mr. Salisu Mohammed, the Deputy Director General, Northern Elders Forum. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program, and you have our best wishes on the coming summit.
Thank you very much.
So much.
You're most welcome.
There's more information coming for you, of course, with insights on the GDP growth rate that Nigeria has now recorded, 4.23%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. What does this mean? Stay with us for details. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the program, everyone, or welcome back to the program, I should say. It's the second part of the program, the morning brief this morning, and Nigeria's economy, well, gets our attention again this morning. Mr. Paul Alaje is the senior economist, SPM professional. He joins us virtually on the program. Mr. Alaje, I mean, you have been talking about Nigeria's economy for quite some time now. You talk about it very, very passionately. So we must thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us this morning. But I'd like us to begin our conversation perhaps with an explainer for those who do not understand. When the MBS says that gross domestic product recorded growth, simplify that for us as much as you can. What does that mean?
Thank you so very much for having me. I want to say good morning to you and all our viewers now and those that are watching the future across the globe. Now, the Bureau of Statistics reported that Nigeria GDP grew by 4.23% year on year as of Q2 2025. That's from April 1st to June 30th, 2025, which means that our gross domestic product, which is the total monetary value that exchange hands from goods and services. Nigeria uses GDP, unlike many countries that use GNP. But I don't want to turn it to a lecture, so I would not want to really go beyond that in terms of explanation. It was an improvement compared to 3.13 that we had in Q1, and for 2025, and 3.48 that we had in 2024 Q2. This is an improvement from those. And we also saw that nominal GDP was in fact humongous. It grew by 19.23%. Now, from 19.23% growth rate that we had in terms of nominal GDP, why did we have a real GDP that went so low to 4.3%? If in the real sense, the growth that we had was 19.23%, the factor, the differential, the factor that made a lot of difference from 19 to the point that we got to a real GDP of 4.23% is called inflation. Because when we have calculated total monetary value that is changed in the economy for a given period of time, in this case, in 1 quarter, we now need to make provision for inflation. What is average inflation in that quarter? When we divided the number by the inflation rate, we got what we call the real GDP. So our inflation is still very high. If it were not high, we will not have that reduction from 19% plus now to say 4.23%. But as it is, it's still a major improvement compared to what we had. Now, looking at the real growth in the oil sector, the real growth in the oil sector grew. In fact, it was a rebound for the oil sector, while you have the non-oil sector sector, which grew by average of 3.64% year on year for 2025. Then we also noticed that the growth in industry sector overall, it grew strongly, even though generally it's still very weak. Industry was about 7.45%, is in fact beyond the average. But when you look at the manufacturing subsector, which is the key sector in the industry sector, manufacturing sector grew much slower compared to what it did this time when we compare last period. It was 1.60%, unlike 2.07%. Agriculture, which has been a major driver, major contributor in terms of our GDP. However, agriculture also grew to 2.28% compared to what it was as of 2.60%. Then I will end on service. Service grew, even though compared to what it was 3.94%, but right now it's 3.94% compared to what it was at 3.83%. Give and take, this is what the GDP number reported. But there are a lot of implications that people need to know, that oil is still a major determinant when it comes to what happened to Nigeria economy. I know successive governments have said Nigeria economy has diversified. So when we talk about diversification, it's not just about what gives government revenue. We're also saying what factor influence what happens to our GDP number the most. We also saw that non-oil sector grew moderately, and the oil and gas, as a structural gap in the economy, it also has a lot of implication. But this is what has been consistent over the year. Manufacturing sector is very, very low. And a country like ours, if you must have economic miracle, we need to find yeast. You know, they put yeast in bread and you see the bread swell up. That's yeast that will help our economy to rebound, that will help our economy to grow, that will allow politicians and professionals to achieve $1 trillion economy in the next 8 years, as we have said. In fact, if I can give you the number we need to grow by, if we want to achieve that by 2033, we need to grow on an average of 17% GDP growth rate. And you ask me why? Before Naira was devalued, all we needed to grow by was about 8 to 10%. Now, why? Because our GDP number before was $425 billion. Today, our GDP number is about $250 billion. So if we must achieve $1 trillion economy, then we need to grow at an average of 17%. In fact, with some fraction, and we need to maintain that steadily. So we must first of all say it is good that we have grown. We are not seeing negative growth like we saw about 5 years ago. You know, almost. I meant 2020 and 2016, not 4 5 years ago. About 9 years ago. Then 2020 we saw another major negative growth as a result of COVID. But economies have started moving on. Nigeria economy must follow suit. Yes, our GDP number has been largely devalued because have been largely reduced, in fact half, because of devaluation. But now we are picking ourselves up, and I only hope that with this new number we will grow even more steadily compared to where we are before. Now, the impact on the people, the impact of the people is very important. What is the impact of 4.2% GDP growth rate? We first need to look at what is our population number. Our population number is between 2.6 to 3%, depending on authority that we are looking at. For a population that has that, we need a GDP that is not less than 7%, or a GDP number that is not less than 10%. If we want to grow, besides, we have a target that we want to achieve as an economy. So we have seen some level of rebound, because in economics, the first thing we check is stability, but we don't stop at this point of stability. We now say, with this stability lead to impact. So the first thing you check in terms of stability will be what is happening to GDP. We have seen that GDP has maintained positive growth rate, even though the overall GDP has emaciated, has been reduced, and that is the challenge there. But we have seen positive growth rate, and that cannot be denied. That is a positive thing. Two, we look at exchange rate. Exchange rate seems to have stabilized around 1,500 to 1,600. In recent time, we have also seen report of 1,400 1,490, which is a major one, which is a good one. Inflation is another factor we need to check when we are looking at whether a country has stabilized or not. Inflation, for 5 consecutive periods, we have seen that it has reduced. Now, whether that it will make impact or not is that we are still on double-digit inflation. Averagely around the world, we should be between 2 to 3%. What we have seen is about 20%, a major reduction from 24% that we were about 5-6 months ago.
All right. You touched on a very important aspect of the conversation moments ago when you talk about impact on the people. If we added 4.23% to 3+% recorded in the first quarter, that's a significant movement in terms of GDP growth. But what the people are saying is that this hasn't translated to an increase in the money in my pocket, my purchasing power. Neither has it translated to, more food on my table. There's a disconnect there, Mr. Alaje. Can you please tie it together for us?
Okay, so what's one of the limitations of using GDP to measure economic growth or economic performance? There are other parameters. Economists want to see what is the distribution of income. Distribution of income is very important, and we use perhaps Gini coefficient as part of the ways we measure whether income is equitably distributed. So for Nigeria, income is not exactly equitably distributed, and there are quite a number of materials that are available for that. So the GDP number has grown, but positioning of the people, the income of the people have been largely affected. So it means that if 4 of us, let's say 3 of us make a country, and each of us make 1,000 naira, it's something, I don't know what happened, I suddenly now made 12,000 naira. The 2 of you now make 1,000 naira more. The truth is that our economy has grown sporadically. So you will see our GDP grow with some hundreds of improvements in terms of growth rate. The question is, has the income been well distributed? This is where we now have government to ensure that when monies that is collected as taxes goes to the government, those monies are now distributed in the key area of need. And of this key area of need, one of the things we need to look at will include infrastructure, making rails available for people from their homes to their place of work, from their farms to the market, connecting their school to areas where they need to go, and enhancing distribution of income and allowing SMEs to do business better. Rail and road infrastructure are very, very key among so many other things authority needs to do. The next is education and electricity. Cost of electricity, in fact, recent research revealed that SME mentioned that one of the things that affected their performance is cost of electricity and subsidy that was removed, because that served as succor to them. The distribution of income has been largely affected. Government, therefore, must find a way to give positive impact in the life of people. And I am not suggesting hand-to-mouth strategy that we saw a number of years back, and even in recent time, giving 5,000, 10,000, 8,000 to the people, or sharing bags of rice. That has never worked, not just in Nigeria. It did not work in Tanzania. It did not work in China. I don't know why successive government, especially subnational and federal, continue to think by sharing this money is going to help to succor poverty or to reduce poverty among the people. What it does most of the time is to sustain them in hunger and deprivation. So the distribution of income is a major challenge here, and we need subnational as well as the federal and states to do this. Allow local government to function. Let them go back to constructing local government markets, construct local government road. The impact will be directly on the people that are the grassroots. So that when you ask that where is the impact, you can say that we are building new market, you can sell cheaper, you have more demand, and we also make sure that in all of this we are doing security at the local and at higher level is very important.
All right, Mr. Alaje, I mean, it's always a pleasure to listen to you do this analysis. You have queried some of the economic reforms of Mr. President, but hate him or you like him, he will go down the history books as perhaps one of the boldest precedents we've seen in very recent times with these economic reforms, taking out fuel subsidy on day one, other subsidies as well, and all of that. But I know that you have also queried the issue of floating the naira. Talk to us about that. What are your reservations about some of these economic reforms?
Yeah, so I remember that before election, I was interviewed by another media house and later by your media house, my friend, Mr. Okimbaloyi, as to what do I think when the next president, among the top 3 or top 4 runners for 2023 election. I said, whatever they want to do, if they must remove subsidy, they must ensure that there are alternatives, which are refineries. I said, privatize the 4 refineries. When the Dangote refinery come mainstream, be very careful such that it is not just the only refinery you will have. The reason is because if they ask you to buy PMS 2,000 naira today, would you say no? In the short term, you might say you are not going to buy. But it's a major need. So we need we need to be strategic in terms of securing our energy sector. Now, and you cannot blame Dangote refinery. I think one of the persons that has even helped Nigeria to rebound today is that refinery. Again, another extreme will now be if we are fighting Dangote refinery, instead of us ensuring that there are other refineries that we come mainstream as soon as possible. That is the strategy. NNPC or Association of Group trying to find Dangote refinery to fight it down, it will actually lead to a common destruction. In fact, most of the time, for those of us that are in research, we laugh because sometimes we see coordination failure. And capitalists, you cannot blame them. The capitalists will take advantage of that coordination failure. What government needs to do is to partner, is to find new investments that we also invest in the same market, because monopoly is dangerous anywhere in the world, but duopoly, when they unionize or when they agree, it can even be more dangerous, because if you go to A and go to B, prices are both high. And if you have oligopoly, it's the same. So for me, the challenge we had with abrupt removal of subsidy was that there was no alternative. Was it both? Well, it depends on your interpretation of it.
Let's speak to more challenges now and interrogate the 4.23% GDP increase. Just last month, the opposition, a key member of the opposition, I'm talking about Bauchi State Governor, had criticized the government, the federal government, over poor budget implementation, saying only 30% of the 2025 budget had been deployed, had been implemented. And this is someone who should know. So if we're recording GDP growth rate back to back, the question is, where is the economic activity coming from that has enabled GDP growth rate back to back? In fact, an increase in the second quarter.
Yeah, thank you so very much. So when you talk about GDP goes beyond government. A formula, permit me to be a bit technical, is Y equals to C plus I plus G. And inside that G, you have Y minus C. I will give you the interpretation of everything. Plus into X minus M. What does that mean? The national income of a country equals to household consumption plus investment. And that's where you have the private sector, investment, plus government income minus government minus taxation, which is withdrawal from that effect. And I hope I have time to talk about withdrawal, because we are talking the numbers now, plus net income from abroad. So when you look at it, what are we both buying? I mean, all of us in Nigeria's household, all of us, what's our contribution to the GDP, which is very significant. We have the numbers. Now, private sector contributed. The government has not put its own expenditure in the national income as it should. Remember that when we talk about government, we are not referring to only federal government. The remaining 36 plus FCT, in fact, FCT is doing so much on that in 2025 in terms of road infrastructure. They will be accounted for. So if federal government is not, which they should, if they are not, it only means that a component of government is not contributing to the GDP as they should. Now, withdrawal, which is where I'm going. If you want your growth rate to be sporadic, if you want your economy to grow really fast, you have to be wary of excessive tax increases. I've been saying this over the years. Now, when you continue or you think that you can increase taxes unnecessarily, it will have negative impact on your growth because it's a withdrawal. And those that will spend the money, most of the time, we may not have control as to whether the entire money is plowed back into the system. So we need to be wary of excessive rates of taxes, of excessive bound of taxes, because it may have implication on growth rate, it may have implication on overall GDP, etc., etc. The net income from abroad. From report now, we are doing more in terms of exports, but we also need to look at what we are doing in terms of payments, because both we account for the influence we have from that. So here is it. Federal government has no reason not to have started deploying capital infrastructure into the system. This has been budgeted for. At first, what this will leave us with will be that some of the things that government has planned to spend in 2025, we might now roll them over to 2026. Eventually, when 2026 budget starts, we might be seeing both budget side by side. I have advised that we need to create a system, a digital platform where budget implementation will be transparent, where we will all see, and the time for which deployment should be done will be clearly observed. And I want to advise those in authority, especially the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that this is done on time. Because if we don't, jobs that should have been created in 2025 will be eroded, because we are talking capital, comfort and provision of right environment that should have been done in 2025. We also not be there. And companies
we have to go now.
that would have also made profits in 2025 might be denied if you don't do the needful this moment today.
Just quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you look at this current administration, the economy, 2 years down the line, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate this economy?
Well, I have been advised not to rate any government on a scale 1 to 10. The reason is because the last time I tried to, calls came in from all over, from my friends in government. Okay. So people should know I have a lot of friends in government, and I love the government too. And I also have friends who are not in government, perhaps those in opposition. I also have friends who are not in opposition, and not in government. So because I am an economic watcher, people should know that I am an economic watcher.
Yes,
I try not to make opposition look strong or government look strong. My role is that
it's a fine place. It's a fine place to leave it, Mr. Alaje.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You've gone political on me, so thank you so much for your views this morning.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Paul Alaje is a senior economist, SPM Professionals. Thank you indeed for analysis this morning on the program. Well, when you take a look at Nigeria's economy, it's, sometimes people fall to the approach. It's like likening it to what is happening in Manchester United with Ruben Amorim, his formation. Some have questioned the style of President Bola Tinubu. Some say the capitalism system perhaps is not working for Nigeria. But hey, this is the morning brief. We get to take a look at something else. The Constitution review, the public hearings ongoing across the nation yesterday gets our attention. Next, we are live in the nation's capital, Abuja, as we get more perspectives. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. So the National Assembly, the House of Representatives specifically, has promised Nigerians speedy process to amending the 1999 Constitution. And they've in fact commended Nigerians for the healthy turnout at the National Public Hearing yesterday in Abuja. So now let's do a temperature check of where exactly we are with the National Assembly's intervention to the 6th alteration of the 1999 Constitution. And joining us on the program this morning is Mr. John Ebikeseye Mutu. He's the Executive Director of the African Parliamentary Research Center. He's also the National Coordinator for Democracy Vanguards. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Mr. Mutu. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
So first of all, let's read the room. It's been months down the line with meetings with groups, civil societies by the National Assembly. What do you see, not just in what legislators are saying, but with deliberate attempts, to engage and ensure that the popular will of the people reflects in those items that are on for the 6th alteration, and we've mentioned them earlier: state police, electoral reforms, inclusion. What do you see in the engagement, in the body language of the legislators?
I think first I want to congratulate the leadership and members of the National Assembly for adopting a very, very participatory process and approach towards the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. From the beginning, the first thing they did was to outline, the thematic areas where they want citizens to make inputs and share this out to the citizens, where they called for memoranda and input from Nigerians. And based on those thematic areas, Nigerians, submitted memoranda and also advocated for specific issues that they wanted the National Assembly to take forward. And having articulated those issues, they came up with bills which they felt captured the views and the aspirations of Nigerians, and to ensure that they really get the support of the people. Those issues were subjected to public hearing at the various geopolitical zones. You remember, in June, July, those items were taken to the various zones for Nigerians to make their comment on those issues, where Nigerians also expressed their views at the zonal hearings. This time around is the last of those hearings at the national level, where the House of Reps once again invited Nigerians to come again and make their issues, especially those around the Federal Capital Territory, to make their inputs. This is the last public hearing that we expect to see, especially from the House of Representatives. And from what I've seen, Nigerians have really, really impressed me. They've leveraged the opportunity provided by the National Assembly and engaged effectively. They've also canvassed for their issues. Both, like you mentioned, the state police issue is critical. I've also seen people talking about state creation. But among all this, the one that really came out top among them is the issue of special seats for women. And you saw at the public hearing yesterday where women in their numbers mobilized to the venue to canvass for their issues. And this is how democracy is supposed to be. Provide platform, provide opportunities for Nigerians to air their views and advocate for the issues. And the National Assembly, based on the issues that have been advocated for, you look at the popular ones, you look at the ones that resonate with Nigerians, and ensure that those bills are passed. I see no reason why the special seat bill should not be passed, because the preponderance of opinion is that it's a popular bill. You saw what happened yesterday, where over 1 million signatures, compendium comprising over 1 million signatures were submitted to the leadership of the House of Reps. This is how democracy should be, and I'm quite happy. The National Assembly is doing a good job, but they need to take it to the finish line. I'll stop here for now.
Mr. Mutu, if the special reserved seats bill eventually is passed, how is that going to work?
You mean the special seat bill?
Yes. How is that going to work?
For me, before I come to that, let me say this. Our democracy, like I said, is emerging. This is an emerging democracy, and both citizens and the lawmakers, continue to dialogue to see that they block loopholes and gaps that they see in our governance framework. You notice in the past, Nigeria and the government has taken initiatives to address issues of exclusion, systemic exclusion, and also to ensure that at least citizens have opportunity to participate in the governance process, and to also ensure that every shade of opinion is captured in the governance process. We have taken certain initiatives in the past. One of those initiatives is the federal character, to ensure that at least every segment of the society or no particular zone dominates the governance process. The second initiative that was taken is ensure, based on equality, the House of Reps and the House of Assembly is based on population, but the Senate is based on equality, ensuring that each state at least produce 3 senators, so that at least all states are equally represented. But this is based on demographic representation. no effort has been taken to look at, in geopolitical representation, but no effort has been taken to look at it from the demographic perspective. Women constitute almost about 50% of our population, and not just that, women constitute about 50% of the voting population. How do we ensure that this huge voting bloc have a seat at the table where decisions are taken? It is based on that women have been advocating for opportunities to be more inclusive, for the system to be more inclusive, especially at the legislature, where critical decisions are taken on behalf of government. So for me, it's a developmental issue, it's a governance issue, not just a women issue. It is an issue that resonates with Nigerians. So on that basis, I congratulate the National Assembly for taking this bold step. How is it going to work? From what you've seen, they've proposed 1 seat for women in each of the 36 states in the House of Reps and the Senate. It means at the end of the electoral cycle, we will have a minimum of 37 female senators in the National Assembly, in addition to the other ones that will emerge from the other seats. Then in the House of Reps, you also have a minimum of 37 women, each representing a state in the House of Reps. So in the National Assembly, you'll be having a minimum of 74 seats. At the state level, you have an additional seat in each of these geopolitical zones, senatorial zones, so you are going to have 3 additional seats for women in each of the states. If you add the total across the 36 states, you are going to be having at least 108 women in the state legislature. This does not preclude the women from contesting for the other seats in each of the Houses of Assembly, or the other 109 seats in the Senate, or the 360 seats in the House of Representatives. In essence, a woman, those seats that have been so created, will only women will be eligible to contest for those seats. No man can aspire for those seats. However, both men and women will vote for those that will be aspiring. And the women will go through the normal, party primaries where candidates will be elected, and they will go through the electoral process just like every other senator.
All right, let's take advantage.
The senatorial districts for the... Okay.
Pardon me, let's take advantage of the time that we have to expand on other aspects of the subject. And we're getting to the point where the rubber meets the road now. Looking at the positioning of the House of Representatives, that it would transparently engage the state assemblies on the items, what do you envision, to be the challenges that could arise? And I ask this against the backdrop of the issues in the 9th Assembly, when the Deputy Senate President said, state governors had turned state assemblies into puppets, and then there were, obstacles to getting issues of state police through. So what are the challenges that you envision in these areas, and how can they be, surmounted ahead of time?
It depends on the issue. It depends on the issue. The first is to cross the line. There are 2 more stages. After the public hearing, the next stage that we expect is for the committee to go through all the bills that are before them. The entire committee members will have to adopt those bills. Those bills that go through that process will now be presented on the floor of each of the houses in the Senate and the House of Representatives for them to vote. And each of those bills will have to secure at least 2/3 majority in each of the chamber. So if state police is able to scale through the House of Reps, and is also able to scale through the Senate, then it becomes a bill that will now be among those that will be transmitted to the states. And if the special seat bill also succeed, it will also, it's not all the bills that are likely to go through. So the first hurdle is to make sure that it passed through the National Assembly. And if you remember, an example, the special seat bill and the state police bill failed at the National Assembly. They didn't go to the states. So let's assume that all these bills succeed and they are transmitted to the State Assembly, like you rightly noted. Yes, it's part of the democratic process. These bills will have to be ratified by the state. You must get at least 24 State House of Assembly out of the 36 voting in favor of each of these bills. That is what the constitutional amendment process says. Again, it's a game of numbers. You just have to keep engaging. The National Assembly has proposed. They have to be ratified by the State Assembly, and not just the State Assembly. Even when those bills succeed at the State Assembly, the President still has to assent. So I will rather ask the advocate for those issues to continue to engage the state houses of assembly, just like they have engaged with the National Assembly, engage with the state governors, who are also stakeholders in the process. I don't expect any state governor to just sit by and watch if there are issues that impact on their own interest. So it's part of the trade-off processes. And I will ask the advocates, including the National Assembly, to make sure that all bottlenecks are removed and make sure they engage the state government and the State House of Assembly. It's an issue of sensitization, it's an issue of lobbying and ensuring that everybody is carried along. That way, we'll be able to get to the finish line.
Yes, Mr. Mutu, because I have concerns with these public hearings. 6 geopolitical zones for a population of about 200 million plus, some say 230 million plus. I was in Enugu State some time ago where one of those reviews held, and I was wondering, those who are the grassroots, the villages, the hinterlands, where their views really captured, where their reservations really captured in these public hearings. That's a big concern for me, because if you ask the average Nigerian right now about this constitutional review, are they even aware that this is ongoing?
I agree with you. But if you remember, it's a process that has taken up for more than a year, and this engagement has been going on all this period. I know that first it started with the call for memoranda of submission of memoranda, and again 3 months or 6 months after, these issues have now been taken back to the various zones for Nigerians to again review, like I said earlier. For the House of Reps, they did in 12 states, 2 per geopolitical zone. But for the Senate, they did in the 6 zones, but 1 in each geopolitical zones. They could have done more, but that is the only way, or that's the only, based on limited resources and based on the limited time available. That is the approach they have taken. But I'm also aware that citizens, their representatives, leaders, cultural leaders, mobilize across the country to attend those zonal hearings. We won't expect the entire 220 million Nigerians to be at these hearings, but at least attempts were made to take it as close as possible to the people for them to be able to also engage. And I'm also glad that the media have also played a critical role. Civil society groups have also carried out sensitizing, especially on the Women Bill. In the 9th Assembly, when the Women Bill failed, you know, the sensitizations was quite limited, and because of that, a lot of people were not part of that process. But this time around, they've carried out serious advocacy, even to secondary schools, to the tertiary educational institutions. They took it to the communities where Nigerians participated. So if you ask me, at least there is improvement in the process this time around.
All right, let's quickly get this one through, which is a key part of the conversation. There is a proposal for the creation of 31 new states. Some would say more states, more trouble. Where are you on this very divisive topic?
I think Nigerians have a right to continue to demand for what they feel is important and what will help improve the governance process. And one of those issues that they have quite called for is state creation. And state creation is not new. It has been on since the first alteration to the Constitution. But the truth of the matter is that have they gone through the process that was, provided for in the Constitution? Have they met the threshold? Have they met the requirement? I remember the Deputy Speaker once issuing a press release that of all of them, none of them have met the threshold, and asked them to do a second round of submission, which most of the advocates did. They presented their report, but the question is that the State and Local Boundary Adjustment Law Act specifically provided for the process through which state creation will go through. So let's test the law, let's test the process and see if they meet the threshold. Why not? It's part of the government. After all, once upon a time, we had only 12 states. Today we have 36 states, and let's see how far we can go. But you can't deny Nigerians to ask for what they think is right.
Can federalism thrive with additional burden? Perhaps we should reflect on that before those proposals go through. We must thank you very much for your time on the program. We've been talking with Mr. John Ebikeseye Mutu. He's the Executive Director of the African Parliamentary Research Center. Thank you for coming through on this subject.
Thank you so very much for having me. Thank you.
Well, from matters of constitution review to the oil sector, of course, which impacts on our daily lives. what exactly is happening between Dangote Petrochemical Refinery and the marketers. Kelly, you have that one next.
Yes, so I mean, since early September, this dispute has been ongoing for quite some time now. Let's see how we can unpack it, unpack this conversation, because I mean, I said when two elephants fight, the grass suffer. But in this case, I'm perhaps a bit excited they are fighting because more revelations have been, we now have been seeing more revelations as this fight and dispute has been ongoing. But we're joined now by Mr. Billy Gillis-Harry, who joins us live on the program. He's the president of Petran, and he will join us very, very shortly. I understand he was going to join us very shortly. But I mean, there's been this back and forth. Perhaps, first of all, there was we thought they had reached an agreement when there was this conciliation meeting, and some agreements were stated out there. But even after the conciliation meeting, even after the agreements were reached, again, we find ourselves back in the room with these two, I should say three actually, Dangote Refinery, Nupeng, and of course Dabman, fighting accusations and counter-accusations. We can even see even the likes of Femi Otoda commenting and asking the marketers to, you know what, I think it's time to innovate and change how we've been doing things. And some are also blaming Dangote and say, you know what, you are a monopolist, you want to take over the market, you want to run us out of business. So we have to unpack this, because for the average Nigerian, is the fact that what is the price of fuel when I go to fill my car or my genset or my motorcycle or my tricycle? That's the concern for the average Nigerian.
The conflict in proper perspective. Dangote had announced the planned purchase of 4,000 trucks, for which the company was supposed to commence direct delivery of petrol to marketers, and in fact 1,000 of those trucks had since come into the country. The rest, we believe, according to reports, are on the way from China. And of course, the marketers kicked against this, because that would be eliminating the middlemen in the value chain, some of whom have been in the business, for years, and you have them with associations. They come in associations, so and that's part of the problem. Did they anticipate, this regime of domestic production of petrol? Remember, we had operated on an import template, and that's what, Mr. Dangote's friend, Mr. Tedela, was speaking to, that change must come, that in other countries of the world, depots were built on an import template. And he commended his friend for, his bold investment and his innovation. So what are the consequences of this? This is not the beginning of this conversation. We had, as a matter of fact, had Dr. Billy Gillis-Harry on this particular subject matter at the time that the information first came through. And he spoke about, trucks within his own association, businesses, jobs that are at the risk of a loss, should this come through. So perhaps Dabman is not just the only association that will be impacted here. But of course, there are different shades of interest, that are involved. Dangote had spoken to, had called out Nupeng for, what was said to be a planned introduction of 50,000 naira on each truck, that it would increase the pump price of petrol. But Nupeng had not in any way confirmed or denied the planned introduction of 50,000 naira on each truck for petrol delivery. So many reports are coming through. There's a report also that the court had barred Nupeng from going on strike. This is also, part of the issues that we should explore and see how this conflict can be resolved. And of course, more importantly, the businesses that may be lost, what are the alternatives, that are being planned for them? We understand that Dr. Billy Gillis-Harry has since joined us. Dr. Harry, I would like you to weigh in on this one. Has the position of Petran changed in any way from what it was the last time to this direct delivery of petrol to marketers?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said.
I would like to know if the position of your association has changed on the consequences of Dangote's new business model, which is a direct delivery of petrol to marketers.
All right. Well, on the surface, on the face of it, it looks like it's a very good business policy. We buy products from Dangote, and then Dangote delivers it free for us. The first question that bothers us in our mind is that this is a service that is paid for and is also contributing to the growth of the economy. So what will be the end result? That would be our first concern. And my members, Petron members, buy from Dangote consistently. We do not have any reason not to support Dangote's business. All we are asking is that the business model of Dangote should be inclusive. Every stakeholder should be on the table to be able to discuss how best to serve Nigerians. Because now, for instance, when product gets to my station in Port Harcourt or Bayelsa or Delta, for instance, how many days will the product get finished? And then when I get another product, will 4,000 tankers do the work to be reaching out to every nook and cranny? That is a big concern for us. So there is already a system by which we have been taking products to our retail outlets for decades, and it has gone through processes of adjustments and new ideas coming in to be able to ensure that products get to us. The idea of CNG truck is not new to us. So many of our members have already invested in CNG trucks and also using the CNG truck. So it is not so much an innovation, that we are new to. But we want to be sure that what we want to do can be done in such a way that there is an effective division of labor across all of us, where Dangote is doing its own refining, the Depot Marketers Association is doing their storage, and then we, retail outlet owners, as the last mile in the industry, will be able to get products from almost all the depots that are in the country. So I think that model will be what we advocated. So we want Dangote's refinery to be successful, but let it succeed with all of us.
Mr. Billy Harry, I mean, that's the argument of Dangote, the fact that, this scheme is going to help reduce the cost of fuel, and then there's going to be steady supply. But you have mentioned that there's how you have a way of doing things. You've been doing this for decades. So I wonder how you respond to the words of Dangote's friend, Femi Otadala, who is saying, you know what, guys, you have to innovate. You have to change the way you've been doing things. Perhaps it's time to change the narrative.
Well, my reaction is that talk is very easy to do, but implementation is a different thing. And I think that is not a very dependable thought or statement. Are you telling me that all the size of investment that has happened in that sector should just be forgotten? Himself was the Dharma member. We all worked together during the riverine petroleum product distribution era. Yes, new things come, old things will go. But there are infrastructures that consistently will be tweaked to be able to serve even in these current realities. Dangote's advent is very, very welcome idea, very prompt and very timely. It gives all of us a sense of pride.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
The network, well, we can't complain, Kelly. The network has been, more clement today than it was yesterday. But we understand, Dr. Harris's moderate position, but we want more clarity as regards what exactly his Petron's own negotiation is with, Dangote Refinery with regards to the delivery of petrol to marketers under their own association. So what's the nature of negotiation and how favorable is it to them in order to ensure stability in their petrol stations in parts of the country where they operate? And then I'd like to know from Dr. Harry, specifically what he can tell us about the introduction of a 50,000 naira charge on each, truck, as reportedly proposed by, Nupeng, according to reports by Dangote. Dr. Harry, do we have you back to respond to those two gray areas?
Well, I'm not sure. I hear he's not back. Bukola, the accusations are really interesting. Dangote, for instance, accused DAPMAN members of round-tripping, diverting locally purchased products to neighboring countries. That's the accusation from Dangote accusing DAPMAN. DAPMAN has also accused Dangote, for instance, of selling the price of fuel at a cheaper rate to the international market and selling it more expensively to Nigerians. So for me, these accusations are really interesting there, and I would like to, I wish we can have Mr. Billy Harris back so we can perhaps hear from him, because he's a stakeholder, he's a major player. I'm sure he's privy to some information that we do not have. I really would have loved to hear him speak to some of these accusations.
Speaking of DAPMAN, it's important to also put it out there that we have extended an invitation to DAPMAN to respond to these allegations. In fact, in addition to that, Dangote has also dared DAPMAN to go to court to defend its own position to retain depots amid this conflict. So we hope that in the coming days, DAPMAN would come through, to respond to them so that we can have, full representation of all sides to the story, so we will not be speaking to one side alone. And Mr. Otedola, of course, Dangote's bosom friend in the business, had quite a lot to say, that has triggered these reactions. He's spoken about pioneering, this association, DAPMAN, in I believe in 1993, but with a perspective in view. If I can catch it, perhaps I'll just go through it. But the crux of what he's saying is that I'd like to read from his statement. What is DAPMAN fighting for today? To preserve a model built on fuel imports, subsidy exploitation, and outdated infrastructure. He goes on to say that that era is fast disappearing. The setting up of depots was mainly to collect PFIs. No depots, no PFIs from NNPC, who were sole suppliers of gasoline at the time, and which thus led to the breeding of complacent importers whose sole agenda was on arbitrage and subsidy margins. And you know that we've seen exited.
Yes. Bukola, I'm told that we have Mr. Billy Harris back, so perhaps he can just land on his thoughts. Mr. Billy Harris, I'm not sure again where you were, but you can just perhaps land on your thoughts and follow some of our concerns and conversations here.
Yeah, what I was saying is that Mr. Tedola's thoughts to my best review will be a subject for debate, and he himself was a DAPMAN member, so he knows what it took for him to put investment in that area. Today he has moved on to other areas. Others have not been able to move as fast as him. So, recommending that they should scrap their investment is something that I think he probably needs to think, deeply before he gives that kind of advice. These facilities are across different parts of Nigeria: Calabar, Port Harcourt, Ogara, Lagos, and even some of them inland, to be able to help in easing the efficiency and distribution. So, I believe that DAPMAN, the leadership, can speak for themselves, but I don't think that it is a good, thought that Nigerians who have invested so much should scrap their investment.
Yes, but because you're a major player in this sector, Mr. Billy Harris, this accusation of diverting products to neighboring communities, we know how we go through a lot of hardship. Yes, I know you cannot hold brief for DAPMAN, but you're a major player. You may be hearing and seeing some things that we're not privy to.
Well, what I can tell you is that there is a new season. We all need to find a way to adapt. Errors that have been done in the past could be corrected and can be corrected. But in correcting it, we do not need to amass power in the hands of just one company or two companies. energy is a very critical issue. It is a subject of security. So it's very, very important, that whatever...
Dr. Harry, let's quickly get this through. Let's quickly get this through. What can you tell us about reports that NUPENG is introducing a 50,000 naira charge on each truck for petrol delivery? How true is it?
Well, none of my members have paid that so far, and we are still loading from the Dangote refinery. So none of my members have reported that they have paid any money. If there are charges, I think NUPENG has the capacity to speak for themselves.
Okay, so just before we go, what arrangement do you have, or are you negotiating with Dangote refinery amid this policy of direct delivery of petrol to marketers? Because you say that your members are still loading petrol from Dangote refinery.
If I understand you clearly, sorry, the network is so bad. If I understand you, are you asking if the experiment is working? Is that what you're asking?
Are you loading directly from Dangote refinery, or is Dangote refinery delivering to your marketers under Patreon?
Oh, I can't hear you clearly. Sorry, the network is so bad.
Okay, I'll try again. Are your members loading petrol directly from Dangote refinery, or is Dangote refinery delivering petrol to your members in line with its new policy? Oh dear, would have to...
Sorry, I'm not hearing you at all.
We're totally out of time, Dr. Billy Harry. We must end the conversation at this point, but we'll try to bring you back subsequently, such that we can exhaust all sides to it. And thank you very much for your time on the program. Dr. Billy Harry is the president of Patreon.
And just to put it out there again, that we had reached out to the NUPENG president, Mr. Williams Akporeha, to come and say his own side of the story and his members, so Nigerians can know better, especially with these accusations. And he's not giving us positive feedback here. So Mr. Williams Akporeha, NUPENG president, would like to hear from you, Dapman as well. We'd like to have you on the show so we get to know exactly what is playing out in the oil and gas sector. But that's perhaps a fine place to anchor our conversation this Tuesday morning. Thank you indeed for staying with us here on the program. I am Kelly Egiga. Sunrise Daily is next.
And there's more insight to come through the week. Join us again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.